Hello class, welcome back in our online discussion. So in the previous lecture, we discussed about the importance of preparation for the upcoming service session. So in this particular discussion, we will discuss about the setting up the dining area. So this is the time that we will have the application of our preparation, our planning. So we are now in lesson number 2. Preparing the service area requires time. Therefore, the food and beverage service staff are given at least an hour to set up the service area before the service or the session starts. So the food and beverage staff have the one at least an hour for the preparation for the setup, or we would say mise en place. Again, the mise en place is not only applicable in the kitchen but also in the food and beverage or all the areas of the establishment, mise en place. Everything must be in place. The service area is where the guests spend most of their time while in the restaurants and where you do most of your tasks as food and beverage service staff. So it should be set up properly depending on the existing policy or the requirement of the upcoming session. So that is why it is very important that the food and beverage staff is well informed by the supervisor what are the setup for the upcoming session. For example, in the next session, for example, it is on the lunchtime, there is a occasion or there is a request coming from the guests. For example, they have a reservation. So the food and beverage service staff must able to know the upcoming session so that they will have some revision of their preparation or set up, especially on the tables. So it is very important to become knowledgeable and well informed before the service session. So this lesson includes the various tasks to be performed in order to prepare the service area, such as, so these are the service area located in the restaurants or the food and beverage department. Setting up furniture and food and beverage equipment. So we need to set up the furniture and the food and beverage equipment, okay? The furniture and the equipment. So we need to set up these two. And also the tableware and preparing the waiter's station. Also the waiter's station. And also adjusting the food service environment. So this is very important. Then we need to prepare the furniture, also the equipment, and the tableware. I know that you know this tableware, the cutlery, and others, glass and crockery, and preparing the waiter station. Okay, so I hope that you already know what are the things located in the waiter station, and also adjusting the environment depending on the upcoming session or season or event. So we need to set up these things. So let's proceed to topic number 1. That's only a introduction. Setting up the furniture and F&B service equipment. Okay, this is the first one. Setting up the furniture and food and beverage equipment. Setting up the furniture and F&B service equipment. Setting up the furniture and F&B equipment is one of the major tasks involved in preparing the service area. So the following measures should be observed when setting up the furniture and equipment. So these are very important. Number 1, we need to determine the additional setup for special occasions. As what we have discussed earlier, the food and beverage staff must be well informed by the supervisor for the upcoming session. So if there's a special occasions, we need to determine or count or set aside the additional setup. Okay, for example, additional furniture, additional equipment. Okay, so we need to determine the additional setup. Number two, we need to check and clean the furniture. Okay, so we need to double check. For example, the tables, I mean the chairs. Sometimes there are, food in this place, in this area, and sometimes there are also hidden things here. So we need to check, or if there's any damage, we need to replace the furniture, the tables, or the chairs. And also we need to prepare the equipment for service. We need to double check if the equipment are doesn't have a damage, or if there's anything that you need to prepare before using the equipment. For example, this coffee machine, you need to make sure that there's a coffee inside. Okay, there's a like a powder or anything that you need to have a preparation before we will use the equipment. So these are the importance to setting up the furniture and F&B service staff. So setting up the furniture and equipment is one of the major tasks involved in preparing the service area. So the following should be observed when setting up the furniture and equipment. The physical setup of most establishment is made permanent, okay? Made permanent. However, several instances will require you to prepare additional arrangement for special occasions such as setting up the buffet table and promotional services. Okay, this is only applicable if there's a special occasions. Doing so requires you to be familiar with the floor plan. So the floor plan shows the manner in which the tables are arranged in the restaurant's area. So there is a floor plan. There's a picture of the like a bird's eye view of the um, restaurants. The tables, the chairs, how many tables, how many chairs, what are the arrangement of the tables and chairs or furnitures. So we need to be familiar with this floor plan that we are working. So now we will proceed to how to determine additional setup for special occasion. So the following are also common factors that should be considered when setting up additional service requirements. Number one, the shape and design of the room. So there are rooms have a unique design. So the commonly design is rectangle, square, or there are some restaurants that have a circular shape. So there's a variation of shape of the room. Next, we need also to consider the immovable objects. There were objects that cannot be moved, so we need also to consider that. Next is the shapes and size of furniture and equipment, okay, especially the size. So we need to consider the size of the furniture and equipment. That we need to make sure that you know it is still spacious, okay. And we need also to consider the emergency exit and doors. We need to make sure that the furniture and fixtures that cannot hinder the exit or the emergency exit ways, okay, to avoid stampede. This is one the common problem of the establishment. Um, so the managers or supervisors must have an ending mind. How about if the establishment will have a, for example, earthquake or there's a fire? So is there any exit plan? So we need to make sure that the exit plan cannot hinder by the furniture and fixtures or equipment by rearranging it in the restaurants. Next is ease of movement for guests and personnel. Yes, this is what I discussed a while ago. We need to make sure that the guests have they have no hard time for their movement, and also the personnel, especially if they will carry the food. We need to make sure that they're also comfortable to avoid accidents. Next is the location of bar and toilets. So these are very important. Next, the cleanliness of the tables and chairs and the comfort of sitting in the dining area has a huge effect on the overall dining experience. So this is really important, especially for the manager or supervisor of the restaurants. So the dining room furniture must be well maintained. Okay, we're always maintaining the cleanliness and orderliness of the furniture. One of the advantages if we will maintain the cleanliness, we will prolong the lifespan of the furniture, so we can save money, and we can avoid more expenses. So the following are some measures to undertake to make sure that the guest will return to your establishment. So number one, use the appropriate cleaning materials and wipe the furniture. This is really important. Before we will have the upcoming session, we need to wipe the furniture. We need to make sure that everything is clean, all the areas of the furniture. Number two, we need to make sure that the tables are clean and dry before making it available to the guests. This is the reason why we need to have an allotted time for the preparation or setting up. We need to clean it and make sure that it is dry before using by the guest. Next is clean chairs regularly to prevent small crumbs from building up. This is what I have discussed a while ago. We need to make sure that the chairs are clean because sometimes the food and service staff neglected to double check if there's a small crumbs that building up on the chairs, and sometimes these crumbs become sticky and it's really hard to remove. That is why, yes, it is advisable that after the guest is, they are eat their food and beverage, and we need to make sure that we will clean it immediately before building up of the crumbs. Next, number four, we need to avoid using abrasive cleaners and products such as sandpapers and brushes with hard bristles. Because if we will use these materials, it will damage the furniture. Next, number five, examine the furniture regularly and report the defects to the appropriate personnel. So we need to double check the furniture regularly. If there's any problem, there's any damage, we need to report the defects so that it will be repaired, or if possible we will remove or change with a new one. And for the preparing of the equipment for service, there were various machines are used depending on the range of service provided by the restaurants. Again, it is depending on the size of the establishment. So there are big size establishment, there are different machines. We only have small size of establishment. We also have little number of machines. And we will discuss here some steps to follow to make sure that the equipment will function well in the course of the food and beverage service session. So there are also some important things that we need to be reminded if we will use these various machines. So number one, we need to clean, okay, and use all equipment according to instructions provided by the manufacturer. That is the importance that we will have a manual. We need to have an orientation on how to use the equipment. There is a big possibility that the equipment will have a damage if we will have not enough information or knowledge on how to use the equipment. So the best thing that you need to do if you don't know how to operate, you need to ask assistance from the supervisor or from the higher employees, those employees that are working for many years or knowledgeable enough on how to use the equipment. Again, if you don't know how to use the equipment, you need to ask assistance from other employees. And don't forget to maintain the cleanliness. Number two, items that are not clean, unsafe, or are showing signs of malfunctions should be removed from the service and reported to the appropriate personnel. Okay, as we have discussed earlier, it is not only for the furniture and fixtures, but also for the equipment. So we need to double check it regularly. We need to check if there's any signs of malfunctions. Because if we will force ourselves to use the equipment that have the signs of malfunctions, there's a big possibility that it can affect the gas. For example, there will be an explosion, or it can really disturb the gas. And I think it can also damage other things. It can affect other equipment. It can affect other the linings of the electricity and many more. So what we are going to do is you need to um, check regularly if the equipment are still functions. If there's signs of malfunctions, we need to remove from the service and we need to report to the appropriate personnel. Number three, you need to turn on machines that need to be prepared before the service starts. That's what we have discussed earlier, the coffee machine or the dispenser. We need to plug in, okay, before the service starts. We need to make sure that there's already a cold water or hot water before the service starts. We will not plug in the dispenser if there's already the guest, because there's a big possibility that as they arrive, they will drink cold water and they will might get angry because the water are not yet cold or not yet hot. So before the service stop, we need to make sure that everything was turned on or plugged in, dispenser, coffee machine, and other equipment. And lastly, number four, beverage dispensers should be inspected and regularly to make sure that they are clean and in good condition, especially if we will refill the bottle of water, the container of the dispenser. We need to make sure that everything is clean. There is no visible microorganisms. We need to make sure that everything is clean before we will use. We need to avoid complain from the guests. For example, if we will not maintain the cleanliness of beverage dispenser and the guest found out that his or her glass have something inside, there's a dirty, there is some substance that is not, um, you know, it can damage the health. There is a visible microorganisms. So there's a big chance that he or she might get angry and it will have a provide a bad image to the establishment. So we need to avoid that circumstances. So what we are going to do is we need to have a well preparation planning, and then we need to set up everything. We need to double check the equipment, the furniture, the service environment, everything before the service session, so that we will have a focus on providing a high quality service to the guests, and they will be satisfied. And if they will be satisfied, they will return to your establishment and it will increase the income of the establishment that you are working in. Thank you for listening and see you in the next lecture. In the next lecture, we will discuss about clothing tables. Bye bye.